knighthood. And the cross hilt of one's sword also perhaps reminded one of an allegiance to God as well as to one's fellow knight and to the ideals of the chivalric code.
Needless to say, heroes, fighting heroes, have to have swords. And Arthur actually has two swords, two very important ones. One of them he pulls out of the stone, and this is the sword that signifies that Arthur was meant to be king. The second is the famous Excalibur. Now this sword, according to the later tradition, is given to him by a supernatural being, by the Lady of the Lake.
Merlin recognized that Arthur's determination to marry Guinevere was too strong, but he was afraid for Arthur. "So be it," said Merlin. "Marry her if you will, but you'll need another sword for protection." The next day, Merlin took Arthur to a lake. "Arthur," he said, "this lake separates life from death. Beyond the mists is the island of Avalon. Those who have lived there are not living, neither are they dead. They have unearthly powers, powers for good and evil." As the moon cast its light upon the water, a hand rose above the surface, holding a beautiful, glistening sword. Arthur took the sword and its superb silver scabbard. The sword and the scabbard were held by the enchantress Nimue, the Lady of the Lake. "The name of the sword is Excalibur. Excalibur will bring you victory and glory. It will cut through iron and steel, but the real power lies in the scabbard. Whoever wears the scabbard will never die of his wounds. Remember, Arthur, never be parted from it. Guard it with your life."
Danger in the tales comes in many forms. The quests themselves, which prove the prowess of the knights, the strange beasts they fight, the injuries received in a violent society. But for the nobility, there was also the danger from within, the fear that your own family could turn against you in the struggle for power.
Mordred, very ancient figure. Of course, the name Mordred sounds like the French word mort for death, but he's a Welsh figure, Medrawd, who's there from the very, very beginning. He's the son that Arthur has, who's fathered in some wrong way on Arthur's sister, on Arthur's half-sister, on the witch Morgause or Morgan, and he is the sort of the Freudian son who returns to kill the father. It's hard not to read him in this modern way, though of course in medieval times he is also the member of your family who is going to take his sword to you to get your throne. So he's a sort of malign figure in your household or kingdom.
Shortly after meeting Guinevere, Arthur was at home in his castle. He was alone and lonely. A woman arrived seeking shelter. Arthur immediately liked her, and that evening, despite his love for Guinevere, Arthur stayed with her. The next morning, she had gone. It was not until much later that he was to learn the foolishness of his action. On his wedding day, Arthur woke early and met Merlin standing on the castle ramparts, looking apprehensively at a group of riders approaching the causeway. Merlin said, "There are your 3 half-sisters, the daughters of Igraine by her marriage to her first husband. 2 of them have come to make their peace with you, but the third, Morgan le Fay, is evil. Indeed, I had hoped never to see her in Camelot." As he looked, Arthur saw that Morgan le Fay also had a boy with her. "Who is the child?" Arthur asked. "You do not want to know, especially on your wedding day," said Merlin. As Arthur looked down at the riders, he was filled with a terrible sense of foreboding, and demanded that Merlin tell him who the child was. "He is your son," He is called Mordred. His mother is Morgause. She came to you that night. She was sent to seduce you by Morgan Le Fay. Mordred is the weapon she will use against you. He is your Judas. He will betray you.
King Arthur was to be betrayed, but not only by Mordred. Arthur established the Round Table with the help of his greatest friend, Lancelot du Lac, who was also to inflict on Arthur his greatest agony. The Tales of Arthur began to incorporate the idea of individual knights, and the story of Arthur's life became synonymous with his Knights of the Round Table. Over the course of the Middle Ages, the fighting knight steadily grew in importance. Knights were employed by the nobility, working for the person who would pay them the most. Their relationship was two-way. They received a payment and consequently owed the lord their loyalty. The lord relied on their allegiance for his power. Knights did not like to feel they were competing for privileges from the noble. So the Round Table cleverly introduced the idea of equality between honourable men.
One of the most notable features that arise in the development of Arthurian story is the Round Table. But it figures very strongly. Every Arthurian romance begins with them all sitting round the Round Table. Now this is a symbol of equality among the knights, and even King Arthur too. And so it's a valuable symbol. It's also a symbol of completeness, a magic circle. This is what they are. They are an entity of sort of brothers around the table, and when one knight is missing or killed, the circle is incomplete. There's magic in the Round Table as well as a sort of democratic politics.
Arthur and Guinevere were married, and after the blessing, Guinevere's father led Arthur away into the great hall of Camelot. In the middle of it was an enormous round table. Guinevere's father proudly presented his gift. Arthur was delighted, for he had become concerned that his knights were too conscious of their position at court, and this would be the perfect solution. Here at the table, said Merlin, will sit all those great men who will help you build up your kingdom. Some are here already, and you will find their names written in gold on their seats. Others will come later. But there is one place reserved, the Siege Perilous. If any man but one sits there, it will be the death of him. Only one knight may ever take that place, on the day the Holy Grail comes to Camelot. He will be the last to come, and he will be the best of you all.
The Round Table has proved to be one of the most enduring images of the Arthur stories. In Winchester, there is an ancient table, a monument to this medieval fascination with Arthur. Around the very edge of the table, you have the 24 names of the knights, including famous ones such as Sir Galahad, Sir Lancelot du Lac, and of course, Mordred. Although Arthur is an undeniably British hero, there is still much debate about where exactly his court and realm were. After the stories of Arthur were first written, it was Somerset in the southwest of England that made the greatest claim for the site of his court, Camelot.
Camelot is the name we use for Arthur's court, but it really seems to be used in French romances without any very clear sense of where it was. It's caught on for us as a mysterious name, a sort of a nowhere that is of great importance. Avalon, the place where Arthur goes to heal his wound, sometimes a place where the Lady of the Lake is to be found, is often identified with Glastonbury, some mysterious place surrounded by flooded land or waters. It's thought to go back to the Celtic word aval for apple. The Isle of Apples is referred to in some Celtic material. And it's almost like another world in some sort of way.
Glastonbury, an ancient and mysterious town in Somerset, has become the area most frequently associated with King Arthur. Just a few miles away at Cadbury, there is an important Iron Age fort, considered by many to be the most likely site for Camelot. And in the town of Glastonbury itself, Arthur's grave was supposedly discovered at the Abbey. It is in Glastonbury that the story of Arthur and the early history of Christianity are fused together.
Glastonbury Tor, the centre, the focal point of the Isle of Avalon. Here, obviously an island, because, well, the levels in front of us, the levels all around us, are in fact well below sea level, and as you can see at the moment, somewhat in flood. And then looking towards Dorset, towards the south, South Cadbury Camp, the Iron Age hill fortress, which John Leland, Henry VIII's antiquary, called Camelot. Here be Camelot, he said, and Arthur resorted much hither. And not very long afterwards, somebody else wrote about it, that it was the place where Lancelot often visited.
Guinevere and Arthur remained childless. As his queen, Guinevere gave Arthur every happiness he could wish for. Camelot flourished as never before. Knights flocked to offer their services to the king, for they were determined to rid the land of evil. They were happy times. A badly wounded knight arrived at Camelot, telling Arthur he could only be healed by the best and bravest knight. Although Arthur's knights all tried, none of them could heal the injured knight. Very shortly after, the Lady Nimue arrived with a handsome young man. She told Arthur, "He is called Lancelot du Lac. Merlin brought him to me as a boy and asked me to care for him, telling me that I should prepare him to become your bravest knight." Arthur at once knew how to test this claim. He instructed Lancelot to heal the injured knight. "But he is not yet a knight," said Nimue. "Make him a knight, Arthur, and Lancelot will do as you ask." With that, Arthur took Excalibur, and with a light tap, Lancelot was knighted. Lancelot then rushed to the dying knight and healed him. In the following weeks and months, Lancelot, Guinevere, and Arthur were hardly out of each other's company. They were close, but almost as suddenly as he appeared, Lancelot disappeared.
The figure of Lancelot is something of a late comer to the Arthurian legend. He's introduced by Chrétien de Troyes in the Middle Ages. Previous to that, there was a Welsh companion, Guinevere, who was a companion to Arthur. There is certainly a school of thought that feels that this new figure introduced completely different set of values. He is something the French language isn't. He is extremely handsome. The ladies love him. He is a threat to Arthur, but really with his association with Guinevere.
Years passed, and then a knight appeared. It was Lancelot, but he had changed. He had become thin and aged. For months, Lancelot had travelled aimlessly. He came upon the castle of King Pelles at Corbenic, where they had been plagued by a great fiery dragon. Lancelot fought the dragon. His great skill and courage had not left him, and it was slain. A feast was held, and King Pelles thanked Lancelot for his deed, saying that he would see something now that no other knight had ever seen. Lancelot told Arthur